Left of the box. So this is the press conference that I was telling you about. Again, David Dole already jumped on this, which is just kind of annoying. Because I was like, I was thinking I was doing it so soon afterwards that maybe I would get the first word in on this. But nope, he's right. He's so talented. Yeah.
Bonjour tout le monde. Aujourd'hui, j'ai participé au sommet des dirigeants du Partenariat des Amériques à Washington.
Okay, so for the American viewers, Canada is a bilingual country. Yep, we speak English and French. In fact, it's taught in our schools. It's demanded by law that Canadians speak French. And our French is a very unique brand of French. You know, you can't really just go to France and speak our French. It's all in its own nature. So what I'm going to do for all of you is I'm going to translate the French parts because there's no official translation for this. And so I'm going to help all my American buddies here with French translations of what Justin Trudeau said. So he just started by saying he's in Washington, the city sucks. There's way too many ducks in the pond that are causing little stirs with like the little pooping that they do. And he accidentally stepped on some today. That's what he just said there.
C'est un sommet qui rassemble 12 pays de l'hémisphère occidental et qui est organisé par le président Biden. Et je vais revenir à ma rencontre.
Okay, so President Biden had an accident twice today. That's what he just said. Yeah, totally what he just said. And the accident is apparently has been classified as top secret. But he just accidentally let that slip out.
Avec le président Biden dans quelques instants. During the APEP summit today.
And it's like, what can you do? Quelques sont. What can you do? That is the Canadian English translation of that.
We talked about the economy, climate action, the geopolitical context in the world right now, and the importance of democracy. During these turbulent times, it is more important than ever to work with close partners in the hemisphere to strengthen our supply chains, protect ourselves from the impacts of climate change, and ensure stability, which is essential to prosperity.
So he's gaslighting here. So translation is, this is what we would like the world to think that we're doing, but we're not doing any of that. Well, they're working with their partners around the world, but not for the stated things that he just said. It's more for, you know, the capitalistic gains, the, you know, colonial enterprises, that sort of thing. Because you can tell a lot about people by the friends they keep.
For example, earlier this year, to help build climate resilience, Canada partnered with the Inter-American Development Bank Group and committed $5 million to promote the use of nature-based solutions in Latin America and the Caribbean.
Wonder if that was with those countries' permission. Anyway, I'm just going to skip ahead a tiny bit. This is from the CPAC website, so I can't speed it up at all. And I want to get to where the press conference
from the
starts.
Western Hemisphere. And we are committed to helping migrant hosting communities on the ground, too, by investing towards better access to clean water, education, and other basic necessities.
About that clean water thing, maybe maybe work on getting that sorted out in Canada. Yeah, for all the Indigenous communities that still need it. That would be a good start. Yeah, basically he comes out to do this press conference and he starts off with just, you know, it's kind of like not poisoning the well, but like sweetening the well, trying to give everyone the impression that what he's about to say will be all good stuff. But I should have time-stamped this better to when the actual thing starts.
Discuss a range of issues. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and the relationship between Canada and the United States is very important in how we engage with all these issues. Of course,
yeah, we usually wait for the United States to say something, and then we go along with it. That's the relationship of Canada and the United States. Like, when there's a coup happening, we have to wait for the United States to declare who the leader is before our politicians can also agree with them and declare that leader.
We talked about the Middle East and Hamas's terrorist attack. We've all seen too much horror these last weeks. Kids being killed, pregnant women needing care, communities devastated. You don't need...
What's causing it? What's causing it, Justin? What is causing that horror? The kids dying, the pregnant woman. What is the cause of this horror, and what can stop it? Justin?
Need me to describe the horror, because we're seeing it every night, every time we open social media. We all want it to stop. We need a humanitarian pause.
There's another word for that, to make all the horror stop. There's another word for it.
But let me repeat what needs to happen and what needs to happen now. First, all the hostages need to be released. We need much more.
Is that just the hostages?
Y compris ici, bien sûr, aux États-Unis.
Is that just the hostages that Hamas has, or is it also including, the hostages that Israel has? I read somewhere it's like 10,000 Palestinians are being held in prison for made-up reasons. Do they count as hostages in this? Or is it just the ones that Hamas has that Israel is actually disproportionately killing? Those ones?
Yeah. We all want it to stop, to be released.
There we go.
We need much more aid going to the Palestinian people, and we need innocent civilians to be protected in Gaza and increasingly in the West Bank, including from extremist settlers.
Again, where is that hostility coming from? Extremist settlers? Where are these settlers coming from? Like, where is this hostility coming from towards them?
On the issue of Canadians and their families in Gaza, we are encouraged by the assurances that Minister Joly received from Israel and from Egypt that Canadians and their families will be able to leave Gaza in the coming days.
But all the other ones can stay there and suffer.
We will not stop until all Canadians are brought out to safety. On va continuer de travailler avec nos partenaires dans la région et ailleurs dans le monde, y compris ici, bien sûr, aux États-Unis.
So he's saying here that while he was in Washington, he did a little bit of ghost hunting in one of the old parliamentary buildings, and he was actually quite surprised at what he saw. Let's see if he explains it a little bit more.
Merci d'être ici aujourd'hui. Je suis très content de répondre à vos questions.
Apparently, the ghost asked him a question.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Merci.
Oh, he wasn't going to say. He just said that he asked a question, but he didn't finish. That's a bit of a tease. I wanted to know what the ghost asked him. Maybe he'll say it in the next time he speaks French.
Premier ministre, on va commencer la période de questions. Une question, un suivi avec Radio-Canada.
Oui, bonjour, M. Trudeau, Louis Blouin. Il y a des centaines de ressortissants étrangers d'autres pays qui sont sortis ces derniers jours.
Okay, so they're asking him, they're actually following up on the ghost hunting question because they're like, with all that's happening in the world, did you really think now is an opportune time to go ghost hunting? Because, we're kind of adding to the surplus of ghosts in the world. So that's not, what Canadians are expecting our Prime Minister to do.
Pour le Canada, on comprend qu'il va falloir attendre au moins jusqu'à dimanche. Ma question, pourquoi est-ce que ça prend autant de temps pour les Canadiens spécifiquement de sortir?
So he's wanting to know if the taxpayers are covering this.
Et quand vous avez discuté avec le président Biden ce matin, est-ce que vous lui avez demandé un coup de pouce?
Évidemment, nous travaillons.
Ma question, pourquoi est-ce que ça prend aussi de temps, autant de temps pour les Canadiens spécifiquement de sortir? Et quand vous avez discuté avec le président Biden ce matin, est-ce que vous lui avez demandé un coup de pouce?
Cuckoos. Okay, yeah. So are taxpayers covering this? And if so, is it going to be declared as a regular expense? Is it going to be a write-off? Because, you know, the average Canadian doesn't have the money to afford groceries these days. And here he is using taxpayer money to go ghost hunting. Well, he's in Washington with everything that's going on in the world.
Évidemment, nous travaillons tous ensemble pour sortir nos ressortissants de Gaza.
Oh, here we go. The ghost apparently asked Justin Trudeau if he condemns Hamas. Yeah, and he said yes. And then the ghost left him alone. Yeah.
Nous avons une situation extrêmement complexe, mais
Yeah, it was an extreme situation. And he said that it was a very valuable exchange, though.
Canada et Mélanie Joly en particulier, on est en train de travailler avec les Israéliens, avec les Égyptiens, avec les Américains.
Well, he said he went ghost hunting with some Americans, with Jolie, with other people. So it's not like it was an expense, a taxpayer expense, solely for his benefit.
Avec tout le monde pour essayer de sortir le plus rapidement possible les Canadiens et leurs familles. On a beaucoup d'espoir qu'on va.
Oh, he was hoping to see a Canadian family that was apparently haunting this old Parliament building. And yeah, okay. Apparently they had the secrets that he was looking for, that the map said would lead him to the power source that would save the world.
Qu'on va les voir dans les journées à venir, mais on va continuer de travailler sans relâche pour que ça se passe le plus rapidement possible.
Yeah, so he wanted to figure out how to get this power source as fast as possible. Hey, I'm just translating what he said, that's all.
J'aimerais vous entendre sur la riposte israélienne. L'ONU a dit dès le 19 octobre, des experts de l'ONU, qu'il y a un risque de génocide contre le peuple palestinien. Le premier ministre israélien lui affirme qu'il ne fera aucun compromis dans sa riposte tant que les otages qui sont détenus par le Hamas ne sont pas libérés. Est-ce que cette ligne dure défendue par le premier ministre israélien vous inquiète? Est-elle acceptable?
Tout d'abord.
Okay, so he said, that's great, but do you condemn Hamas?
Or, nous comprenons tous à quel point Israël veut et a besoin que ses otages soient libérés. On parle de 200 personnes qui ont été enlevées de leur résidence le 7 octobre, qui sont dans des situations extrêmement difficiles. C'est certain que ces otages doivent être retrouvés, doivent être libérés. En même temps, on doit se demander si le coût de la justice doit être que tous les civils palestiniens souffrent. On a besoin d'assurer de l'aide humanitaire, on a besoin d'assurer de l'eau, des médicaments, de la nourriture, l'électricité pour pouvoir fonctionner. Et c'est pour ça qu'on appelle à des pauses humanitaires le plus rapidement possible pour protéger la vie des civils.
Next question.
Yes, I condemn Hamas.
Adrian Moore with the Globe and Mail. Prime Minister, in your conversations with President Biden, did you get the sense that Israel is any closer to agreeing to these humanitarian pauses? And what are you doing to get them there?
I can't speak for Israel's decisions right now. What I can say is countries like Canada and the United States and others are continuing to encourage everything that can be done to protect human life, including with humanitarian pauses. This is something that I did speak about with President Biden. We shared our concerns. We also will continue to stand steadfast in terms of ensuring that Hamas is held to account, but also.
What about holding Israel to account? for everything Israel's doing? Why is it always just Hamas? Like, why can't they be real at any point and just say what Israel is doing is wrong? That these deaths that are now 10,000 from what I just saw on Twitter, that this is a result of Israel. Why is it always focused on Hamas? It's so hard for, colonial countries to own up to other countries doing colonial horrors, because calling them out would mean calling out things that Canada has and continues to do.
Also ensuring that everything is done to protect civilian life, including Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank.
What are your thoughts?
Everything to protect civilians? Huh? What would that be? Everything? Huh?
It's on some people calling for a ceasefire. What are your thoughts on the possibility of ceasefire?
It's hard to watch the news every night and see the impacts on civilians, including children, and not want it to stop. We understand how difficult the situation is, the impact of the horrific terrorist attack by Hamas. Hamas, an organization that is not only responsible for the deaths of...
So far the question to should we call for a ceasefire is, things are bad. Yeah, they're horrible. Hamas is bad. That's not actually answering the question.
Of Israelis, but also, and over years and decades, responsible for the deaths of Palestinians as well. We need to see a cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
So close to just letting that out. Let's see.
A cease. We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing.
It's like, ooh, how fast could I backtrack that? Whoops, no, I didn't. I wasn't about to say ceasefire. Gosh, no, not me. Ceasefire? No. A cease to stop, like the violence. We need a cease to that. Like, oh, he was just so close.
Deaths of Israelis, but also, and over years and decades, responsible for the deaths of Palestinians as well. We need to see a cease.
Fire.
We need to see a humanitarian pause so we can flow. We need to see ceasing of the levels of violence that we're seeing. We need to see civilians protected. We need to see a humanitarian pause to get aid in, to get Canadians out, to get vulnerable people out, to get hostages released. These are the things that the people around the world are looking for.
Yeah, and all of that could be accomplished by a cease. Fire. Those, you can say those two words together, they're, it is actually, when I Google it, it is one word. Ceasefire. It's one word. You can do it, Justin. So close. Just give into that base. Just, give in to the people protesting and rallying. I know it's hard to separate yourself from, your weapon dealer buddies and all the money that's involved with this, but just for the sake of a humanitarian pause, can you do the decent thing and call for a ceasefire? Be bold, be the first. Be the country I thought this was when I was a kid.
Évidemment, on ne peut pas voir les nouvelles à chaque soir, voir les enfants tués, voir le cataclysme humanitaire qui est en train de se dérouler, sans vouloir que ça cesse. Nous comprenons absolument à quel point...
So far he's saying, that was a close call. I almost said the wrong thing. Wow, do I ever need a coffee?
Hamas doit être rendu en justice. Il doit avoir des conséquences pour Hamas. mais nous devons nous assurer que la vie civile soit protégée. C'est pour ça que nous appelons pour des corridors humanitaires, pour une pause humanitaire, pour de l'aide pour les civils palestiniens. Nous demandons que les...
So he's been to cafe after cafe, but none of them have good coffee. Like, he's wondering, why are there no Tim Hortons around where he can at least get a photo op from and have coffee that he's familiar with? Because American coffee sucks.
Les otages soient remis en liberté. Nous demandons qu'on fasse tout ce qui est nécessaire pour ça.
Demandons, confess. Yeah, he demands that the Americans confess to the fact their coffee sucks.
Sortir les Canadiens et leurs familles de Gaza.
Next question.
Oh, and he condemns Hamas.
Alex Panetta, CBC News. Hi, Prime Minister. My colleagues are reporting that Canadians in Gaza might be able to leave on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Can I ask you what specific services the Canadian government intends to offer? What is the Canadian government going to be doing for people who manage to make it across the border?
We are working with all of our regional officials and our allies to make sure.
Just so you know, that clean water he just drank, he doesn't see any, the privilege he has to be able to do that based on where he was born. And you know, it's a little thing. It's a little, like, it's nothing really, but it is just, he enjoys the privileges of being a white man in Canada, talking about the horrors that everyone else is facing in these countries and telling them what they should want and need. You know, he has no problem letting them suffer from the comfort of being in a coffee-less state.
That as Canadians come out to safety, hopefully in the coming days, they are properly supported. We've been there from the very beginning for people.
Yeah, we have been there from the very beginning, selling weapons and giving money.
Leaving the West Bank, for people leaving Israel since October 7th. We will continue to be there.
History started before October 7th. Just, I hope people aren't getting too annoyed with like all this pausing and stuff. Just, yeah.
To help Canadians and their families get to safety.
So there would be consular officials on the ground?
We will be there as we are.
Selling weapons.
Hi, Prime Minister Brian Platt with Bloomberg. Earlier this week in Ottawa, the U.S. ambassador said your country's in for a big fight if you move forward with the digital tax that would hit a bunch of big American tech companies.
So here he's talking about there's Bill C-18, which Bill C-18, Bill C-11, which had to do with like online news and taxing online content creators who make over like $10 million a year and all that sort of stuff. I have videos on Bill C-11. But this is, you know, somebody asking a question about policy related to Canada stuff while he's standing in America.
Did you discuss that with President Biden this morning? And are you willing to risk American trade retaliation by moving forward with this?
The finance minister addressed that issue earlier this week in her press conference. But I can tell you, this morning we talked about a lot of different issues. That one didn't come up.
Of course not. Actually, I don't besmirk it, because with everything that's going on right now, whether or not we're taxing, you know, big media corporations that weren't used to being taxed or something, well, taxing is generally speaking good. There are more pressing matters at hand right now. Just saying.
Okay. Did India come up in your conversations with Biden? And is there any update that you have? Have you been briefed at all from law enforcement officials on the investigation? Are you concerned that this may end with no criminal charges? Just any update that you have at all on that?
Just a reminder, there was a prominent person, an Indian man who was assassinated by India while in Canada. He was an Indian Canadian So a Canadian citizen prominent within his community was assassinated, and it caused a bit of a stir, but it's been very quiet on that subject later. As of late, they're probably working on things behind the scenes, you know, backdoor conversation, like backroom conversations about this, because this is part of the sausage that not all governments would want people to see necessarily.
Canada is a country of the rule of law.
No, we're not. We are not. No. We're supporting war crimes right now.
We will always be. We were responsible and serious in how we approached the allegations we shared, and we continue to ask the Indian government to work with us to get to the bottom of this matter, to get clarity on this matter. And we also deplore the violation of the Geneva Convention that the Indian government chose to do when
he's only okay with the Geneva Convention being violated when it's countries that he gets along with better.
they arbitrarily suspended the diplomatic immunity of over 40 Canadian diplomats in India.
Wasn't
For
so
a country to
arbitrary.
simply decide.
Yes, it was in retaliation for Justin Trudeau actually, you know, doing what he should and calling out the Indian government for their actions. Because making that claim to begin with is a serious, it was a serious thing that happened. But it would only make sense then that India would reciprocate with something like this.
That as of a few days from now, your diplomats will no longer have diplomatic immunity, is against all the principles of global diplomatic conventions. And for us, it's an example that that we need to continue to impress upon the Indian government the importance of the rule of law.
See, it's okay when Canada, the United States, Israel goes against all of these conventions that are out there. But as soon as another country does it to us, like, come on, we're not, you can't do that to us. Like, we're the ones that do it. It's, yeah, that is some high entitlement there.
Next question.
Hi, Prime Minister James McCartan, Canadian Press. You said earlier this week that while you believe that Israel has a right to defend itself, the price of justice cannot be the continued suffering of all Palestinian civilians. I'm wondering if you think that constitutes collective punishment, and if not, how we should interpret what you said.
Yes, I'm going to allow, you know, obviously the discussions will continue in academic circles and diplomatic circles and legal circles around this issue. For me,
wait, is he waiting for a different definition of collective punishment? Is that what he's saying? That, you know, we're looking into what this term means as opposed to, you know, what it actually means right now. Because if we go by what it means now, then that would mean that Israel is in fact doing collective punishment. And yeah, that makes things a little awkward.
For me, it's a matter of common sense. Seeing the suffering of so many people is not, to my mind, leading towards opportunities for a two-state solution. It's not leading towards greater prospects for peace in the medium and long term in the region. And that's what we all need to be focused on. Yes, there need to be consequences for Hamas for its horrific and unacceptable terrorist attack.
And there needs to be consequences for Israel for their horrific and ongoing attacks against Palestinians. Yeah, that's also... I will do the thing of saying, yes, what Hamas did was horrible, bad, should have never happened. You know, killing 1,400 people. Horrible. 10,000. Half of them kids. Like, these are two different things at this point. What Israel is doing and continues to do needs to stop. And we need leaders around the world like Justin to call for a ceasefire, to really not support Israel in this brutality. It's not a complicated question at this point. How many more innocent people need to die? How much of the land in Gaza needs to be destroyed? The homes that these people were living in. There's nowhere for them to go back to after they were forced to move. Over 1 million people told to move. But, oh, they'll be allowed to go back eventually. To what? Rubble? And trying to rebuild when Israel won't allow proper building materials in? You know, when you do this to an entire population of a area, because of the actions of a teeny tiny few, there's a term for it. Collective punishment. Yeah.
Of October 7th. But we need to do so in a way that minimizes the impact on civilians. And that's why we've been calling for humanitarian aid to flow into Gaza. We've been calling for humanitarian pauses to allow people to get that support in and to get Canadians out. Yes, we need to release the hostages. They need to release the hostages. We need to see civilian life protected.
With a ceasefire. You can do it. You can do it, Justin. Just grow a spine.
And if I could press you very quickly on the digital services tax issue, what
Let's get
exactly
back
is
to
the problem?
I love that. It's like, oh yeah, that stuff in Gaza. Yeah. Anyway, about those taxes. Let's get back to that.
With a pause, sorry, bad word, for waiting a year.
Can we have a pause on the taxes? Can we have a humanitarian pause on taxes? Just, wow, yeah.
To wait for the OECD framework to kick in. Why pick this fight now if in fact the ambassador's prediction comes true? What's the issue there?
Listen, the Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister spoke to this earlier this week. We're a government that believes that everyone should pay their fair share of taxes. We are hopeful that there will be a common framework eventually sometime in the future. But we've been very, very clear about our responsibility to Canadians, particularly for services delivered to Canadians on Canadian soil.
Thank you. That will conclude today's press conference. Merci. Ça va mettre fin à la conférence presse.
Oh, the woman at the end just mentioned that there's a snowstorm at Mount Monadnock. So his planned trip to go climbing there might have to go on hold. And it's just so frustrating because you have here some politicians willing to call it out. And then Justin Trudeau was so close, just so close, and saying a ceasefire accidentally, but he almost said ceasefire in that press conference. And that was, that was on the 3rd, I believe, but he immediately had to do this. Like right afterwards, he's like, I spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu today. I reiterated Canada's support for Israel and its right to defend itself in accordance with international law. We also spoke about the need for Hamas to immediately and unconditionally release those being held hostage. I reaffirm the importance of upholding international humanitarian law. No, you don't. No, you don't. Because we're supporting Israel in breaking that humanitarian law and making every effort to protect Palestinian civilians. Every effort except a ceasefire. That would protect them right now. I express my deep concerns with the dire humanitarian crisis. What's causing that crisis? What is causing it, Justin? Huh? Justin? What's causing that crisis? And spoke about the need to create conditions for necessary aid to flow into Gaza. Like, he had to immediately, as soon as he accidentally almost said ceasefire, he had to immediately put it out there and like double and triple down. It's like, no, 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 I still believe in your right to defend yourself. We got to keep those arms sales going. We can't call Israel. It's always just about Hamas and what Hamas is doing, and they need to do all this stuff. It's all on Hamas to fix this situation. But as oh gosh, what's his name? Just went on the Piers Morgan show and everything. The former comedian, as he said, like, there's a name for Gaza without Hamas, and that's the West Bank.